Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Grand Rising, good people. Grand Rising. Please make sure as you join that you're liking for the algorithm. You know, we got to make sure that as many people tune in and tap in with this conversation as possible. All right. Oh, I need to just got to set a reminder. All right, so I'm posting it on my story. I hope y'all are posting it on your story or sending it to your group chat, whatever you prefer. Hope everybody had an amazing weekend. Weather was a little bit all over the place yesterday, right? Who got hit with the storm? Grand Rising Earth. Happy Monday. Let's get this bread. Let's get to this chicken, man. Why not? Somebody got to get to it. Somebody's got to get to it. Why not us? We got a new segment for y'all today, too. We got a new segment that some of y'all may enjoy, man. I hope Dan's on here today. I think he would definitely enjoy it. What is the name of that new segment? You guys are going to get a kick out of it. But I'm just posting. You guys make sure that you post. I'm posting. All right, so we should be locked in and good to go. Let's see what the weather's going to be like. What's the weather? All right, so in Jersey, looks like we got a high of 84 today. It's going to be 50% chance rain. Looks like we don't have rain until about 5 p.m. actually. So should be okay. Partly cloudy, mixed with a little sun in there. Let's see what it is just for giggles. Let's look at how Miami's looking. Miami's gonna be 90. A little sticky though. A little sticky. It is what it is. All right. Let's get to the show, man. Let's get to the show. What we got today? All right, so today we're finally going to get to Kirk Franklin. All right, we've been messing around. I feel like I've been dangling that in front of y'all for a while, and we're finally going to get into that conversation on Kirk Franklin and what he told Cam Newton in their interview regarding women getting married. We have this new segment that is called Dumb-ish. I said the other day, I wasn't sure if I was good. You can't curse within the first couple minutes on YouTube. It'll mess up your algorithm. But dumb-ish, I said the other day. And it's a segment that I'll explain a little bit more later on. That'll be one of the earlier segments. And it's very important that we get into that segment. But when we get there, I'll explain why. Then we're going to talk about extremism. All right, extremism on both sides. We're just going to break down what exactly is extreme. I know we mentioned it on the last show that Doug had brought it up. Shout out to the big bro, Doug. We're going to talk about what makes something extreme and whether or not people are motivated by the extreme things or the essential things. And then we're going to finish it off with something that I tried to do yesterday on live, was having a little bit of computer issues, but just something came to me yesterday, a little Sunday word. I'm going to share it with y'all on a Monday. I think it still applies, especially for starting off the week. So we'll finish off with that. So to start off, hold on. Let me bring this together. Hold on. Let me get my ticker right. All right. So we'll start off with this segment. Let me move my bro Urs off the screen so he's not caught up in that. So I was sitting back, and I'll show you the video that actually brought me to wanting to have this particular segment called Dumb-ish, I said the other day. And it was kind of like a little bit of a joke, but it was also, afterwards, after sometimes I have the show, different people say different things, or I'll just go and, do a little bit more research on certain things. And obviously you try to, make sure that you're doing the research beforehand, but sometimes you don't always get it exactly right. And it's important for me to go back and either clarify or acknowledge an area where I was like, I was wrong on that one. I was off on that one. and explain to you all, get y'all feedback, and kind of go from there. And one of those things was a video that there was a couple different ones. So, and I said, you know what? It kind of happened with it happened with the Olympic boxer. And just to kind of give you guys a heads up on this one, but it also happened with something on the last show that was discussed when it came to Kamala Harris. All right, I want to show you guys a video that I played when it came to Kamala, and I want to get you back and explain a little bit more clearly on what exactly I said, what I thought I was wrong about, what I may have been right about. So let's once again, this is dumbish the other day. And the reason why this is so important is because as I look on the news, you don't get an objective feel. You don't get just information. We just get opinions, and we get, mostly in my opinion, propaganda. And it's usually stuff that doesn't matter whether it's fact checked or not, whether it's the New York Times, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's Fox News, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And people are just putting out information. And what do we typically do? We just go along with it. We just go along with it, especially if it aligns with something that we're already trying to prove. So I was looking at it and I said, you know what? I got to make sure that I'm never turning into that. And if I do say something, that I go back and address it, bring more clarity to it, or just say like, no, I was wrong on this one. So I want to show you this video that I played the other day. I want to show y'all this video. Too bad Dan ain't here. All right, so it should be sharing. And I want y'all to take a look at this video, and then I'm going to explain why I think that either I was wrong or it needs more clarity. Shout out to Queez in the building. Yeah, we definitely reflecting on a Monday. Reflecting on a Monday. Got the overcast. Might as well reflect. All right, so let's take a look at this.
The yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative, and the bill, as amended, is passed.
And if you're seeing on here, so what was reported was that Kamala, obviously, if you saw, and I kind of want to wait to, that's why I kind of wanted to wait till the last part of the video. I'm just going to keep going, and then I'll explain it afterwards.
Because when I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips, people making tips.
Eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Okay, so obviously you heard Trump and you heard Kamala say similar things. What's good, Ant? So Ant, you're just joining us. We got a new segment, and it's just going to bring some clarity. The segment is called Dumbish, I Said the Other Day, and it's just kind of circling back to certain things where I feel like I was either off on, completely wrong, or just didn't give enough clarity to. So as you just saw that video on Kamala, a lot of people were putting that up and relating the Inflation Reduction Act. So what we just saw of her signing, there was a 50-50, so she broke the tiebreaker, and she signed into action, whatever you want to call it, a policy, or called the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, after the show on Friday, I did a whole bunch of deep digging on this Inflation Reduction Act, just because I wanted to learn more. And I was also thinking about, I'm like, okay, because I saw, as I was doing a little research, some people respond and say, oh, this isn't true. The Inflation Reduction Act didn't do this. Kamala didn't sign this into play. The Inflation Reduction Act. And this, I also learned that a lot of times when they push these acts through, the name of the acts tends to be very misleading. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act. So you're obviously thinking that it has to do with something about inflation. But the more research that I did, it's pretty much a plan to hire a bunch of workers with the IRS to pretty much go out there and raise money in collecting people's taxes that were not paid on, or they feel like they can get some more money from. That's pretty much what it does. It sent out, it raised the budget of something like, I don't even want to say the exact budget. I think it said it actually in the video, but it raised the budget to hire a bunch of these workers. So a lot of people will now be getting audited. And what it claimed in the initial act, or in the act, is that people who make less than 400,000 will not be impacted. Now, when the Republicans tried to amend and get that said in the actual act, I believe the Democrats turned it down and just pushed it through as is. So this was my understanding on it. The Inflation Reduction Act. So it's pretty much meant to collect funds from taxpayers in order to feed the government. And then that money, along with some other tax breaks that come with like some environmental benefits, a bunch of other stuff, would just pretty much give the money, just taking money and bring it into the government. So therefore we can address inflation. Now, doing my research, I believe it was the Penn School, the Wharton School of Business, they did some research on it. They did a study, and it showed that it was like a 0.1 chance of actually helping inflation. Neither here nor there. What do I think that I was off on? This act does not specifically say that it's going to tax service workers. Does not say that. But what it will do, based on a bunch of the feedback that I got from it, doing my due diligence, what the due diligence that I did, what it does is it actually provides a program to where service workers can add their tips, which we all know how that goes with the point of sale, but it wouldn't directly be the service workers. It would be their employers. So here they would create a program, and this was after the act was put in place. So the initial act is just going to get people out there to do more and more audits. If you've ever been audited, then you understand that they're pretty much saying like, hey, you paid this amount of taxes. We think you owe more, pay up, or prove it to us that you don't. Now, the other thing that they put in play that year for taxes was this thing on their website that they had for service workers or employers to report the tips. So in all actuality, what would happen is the people now using these point of sale things rather than cash. That's why a lot of your waiters and waitresses like to get cash, because that's not something that they have to report. So therefore, they typically wouldn't have to pay taxes on those. With this program that they put out, you would have to pay taxes on the tips. And what happens is the employers pay. So it's not the actual service worker that pays. They report it now to the employer, and the restaurant owner or whoever, they then do their calculations and would pay the service workers less. So I felt that I wasn't clear on that. So that's my understanding on it. So I felt that it was, what I said the other day was misleading, because I almost presented it in a way where it's like, okay, Kamala voted to tax service workers tips before. Now she's voting for something. Now she's saying something totally different. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was exactly what I just described. It was she put out this act with Biden that was going to have more and more people out there that would be pretty much auditing people that have their own businesses. And there's not a 400,000. It's not what they proposed. Oh, nobody would be affected if you're making under 400,000. And based on the numbers that I looked up, the amount of people that actually get audited the most are the people that make less than that amount. So the program that they put in play would hire more workers, so more workers can pretty much go out there and audit. If you work for the IRS, if you're familiar with the IRS, then you understand the IRS's job is to just go collect money from tax-paying citizens. It is what it is. So hopefully that gave a little bit more clarity. There's one other video that I want to play regarding this exact situation. Dumb ish, I said the other day. I already kind of reflected on it the other day, but I want to go and address it again, and then we can move on. Hold on one second. All right. So some of you may or may not remember this case.
In women's boxing around Aman Khalif from Algeria, video circulating of her knocking out an Italian fighter in 47 seconds, and statements from a boxing organization that indicated she was banned from competition for sex testing that indicated an abnormality that might suggest that she's not a woman. To be very clear, this is not a situation of a trans athlete. This organization is no longer part of the Olympics. In fact, it was kicked out of the Olympics over the fact that this IBA boxing organization is essentially run by the Russian government. The National Olympic Organization of Algeria has denied this. They say that she's a woman on her passport, she's a biological woman, and that these are all baseless attacks. The IOC is adamant that she's eligible to compete and that she is a woman. And here's what they say about it.
This is a minefield. And unfortunately, as with all minefields, we want a simple explanation. Everyone wants a black and white explanation of how we can determine this. That explanation does not exist, neither in the scientific community nor anywhere else. As I've said before, if we can find a consensus, and we will work towards a consensus, we will certainly work to apply that. Clearly, that's not going to happen at these games.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video...
All right, so now I know that we talked about it before, where we kind of circled back and we discussed the fact that she's born with a condition, I believe, that's called Moore syndrome, which even though you grow up as a woman where you never develop your male organs, so therefore you have your XY chromosomes, which technically make you a man, but your XY chromosomes don't necessarily, your body doesn't develop based on you having those XY chromosomes. And I made the statement that she was born a man. I have no proof that she was born a man. So it's not a trans situation. Initially, I thought that it was more towards a trans situation. It's more towards her having a condition to where she's obviously going to develop a lot more testosterone. A lot of people with this Moore syndrome, they're not able to get pregnant. I believe a lot of them don't ever get their period. So they understand maybe when they reach their teens that their bodies are a bit different or a lot different than, let's say, most other women, because they technically are men living in underdeveloped bodies. And when I say underdeveloped bodies, I mean they never developed their male organs. So even though they may have higher amounts of testosterone, be stronger, have more manly characteristics, I should not have said that she was born a woman, born a man. So that's a totally different situation. I don't even know how you deal with a situation like this. I don't know how you deal with somebody that was pretty much born like an intersex. I believe that's what they call it. I don't know if they have certain advantages that are over the other women that are not born with this condition. What would be the right field for them to compete in? I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure that I presented to y'all in a particular way where I'm very clear on giving you certain information and not misleading you. So that's the two things. So this is going to be a segment. Hopefully I don't have to do it too much, or hopefully the segment won't get too long, but I'm going to make sure that as I go back, and I'm always looking to, see what things that I could have been better on, that we looked into this segment called Dumb-ish I Said the Other Day. So y'all feel free. If Danny was here, I'm sure he would let me know probably some other areas where he thinks that I was off, but I'll always go back, take a look at it, process it, and figure out and make sure that I'm presenting you all the right information. So now that we got that out the way, happy Monday, Lucille. Beautiful people sending love, light, and peace. So now that we got that out the way, let's get to the meat of this thing. Oh, and hold on, let me show y'all. All right, so now I gotta talk a little ish. So this is the video that actually, let me show you the video that actually made me put something up like this. And it gets to a point where when we're looking at news and when we're looking at what I kind of described in the beginning, how people will kind of just fly off the handle and say certain things without fact checking it, and when the news outlets become less and less objective, these are the things that are going to occur. So I just want to make sure that I'm not giving y'all this type of information or even just having this type of energy on the page. So let me show y'all exactly what I'm referring to. So this particular situation, this is the video that made me come up with Dumb-ish I Said the Other Day. All right, so y'all take a look at it and we'll walk through. And this is what we have to fight when it comes to news outlets and media and us allowing ourselves to get manipulated.
When Donald Trump called the media the enemy of the people, I never imagined the bulk of the mainstream media would work tirelessly to live up to that tag. But here we are, and from the Fine People hoax to the Russian collusion hoax to the Kamala is a great and visionary leader delusion, the gaslighting and deliberate disinfo has been turned up to thermonuclear levels. Large segments of the media are so shameless that they even took a poignant moment from the Republican National Convention when Trump paid tribute to Corey Compatore, the father and fireman who was murdered at a Trump rally by the assassin who was trying to kill President Trump. Here is Corey's widow this week talking about what that moment meant to the family.
Corey's firefighter gear was displayed at the Republican National Convention, which was a special honor.
That was an honor. That was a big honor. All day at the rally, my husband kept saying, he's going to call me up on stage. You're going to hear him. He's going to say, Corey, come on up here. Corey, get up here. He was just joking, obviously, but he kept saying that. You're going to get up. He's going to call me up on stage. And we were all like, there's his moment. He's up on stage.
It was a powerful, emotional moment, but this is how the media spoke of the tribute. Let's start with MS.
So clearly this is the gentleman that was a firefighter. I believe he pretty much tried to, when the shots ended up going off, he tried to shield his family and he ended up getting killed, was a firefighter. So therefore Trump, decided to bring his firefighter jacket, helmet on stage in order to honor him. So based on all the things that I said before and why I decided to start this segment, this is what ends up happening when we have news outlets that are just so biased and not objective. Journalists that don't want to give us information, but instead want to feed us a certain level of propaganda in order to sway us one way or another. So that's why I said it's important for me to make sure that, I'm circling back. But look at what it causes. Look at this video response based on Trump honoring the firefighter.
SNBC.
I was sickened by the prop that was Mr. Comparator.
Well, exactly. Comparator, yeah.
Comparator. I was sickened by them using him as a prop, his firefighter jacket, and then they spelled the man's name wrong. And so he said, oh, we're so grateful that the fire department sent this to us. These are local dang on dollars, okay? This is not, Chicago Fire. Angela Bass ain't about to come out. They got their names on the back of
Yeah, first and foremost, what is going on? What is going on? Why is she speaking like that? Why is it okay? I don't know if y'all notice it. I don't know. But I don't know whether that's a new thing for certain people in politics where it's almost like you try to go on a professional platform and sound as street or whatever as possible. I don't know. I don't know, but it just sounds a little crazy just to hear her even speak with this type of energy and to be speaking like this on this type of situation. But let's rewind a couple seconds and then we'll listen to the rest.
And so he said, oh, we're so grateful that the fire department sent this to us. These are local dang on dollars, okay? This is not, Chicago Fire. Angela Bass ain't about to come out. They got their names on the back of the jackets. Who are you fooling? But then they put the name on it and they spelled it wrong. I was just kind of like, if we're gonna do props, let's at least get it right.
I'm trying to organize that chaos in my mind.
Just gross. The truth is, it wasn't a prop. It was Corey's real uniform, and the moron activists in the media who ran with that angle would have known that if they did even 5 seconds of research, because Corey's former colleagues had displayed his uniform as a tribute well before the Republican National Convention. We'd already seen this image. Those with any interest in the assassination attempt and its victims knew that. Any media reporting on it could have checked that within seconds, but no. In their desperation to slam Trump They manufactured a story, giving little thought to how it would impact a grieving family. And that fake news about the Trump camp misspelling Corey's name went far and wide. And it was also evident right here in Australia. They were eager to push that fake news from the free-to-air stations to the 9 papers. Here's how The Age reported Trump's speech at the Republican National Convention. They claimed that the tribute to the killed firefighter misspells name. They put that in the headline. That was their focus. And here is the Sydney Morning Herald and their headline. Our friend Corey, Trump tribute to killed firefighter misspells name. Just shameful fake.
So obviously, y'all can understand what I'm saying. So I want to make sure that I'm not getting to a point where, you know, that I'm doing stuff like this. This is just, it's just where we are. It's just where we are. We are in a place where I wouldn't believe anything that anybody says. You just have to do your due diligence, have to do your research, and have to actually look into it for ourselves, because whether it's the AI stuff, whether it's the fake, I forget what the fake videos they call them, we are being fed propaganda. We're being fed propaganda. And like we said, I told y'all, look up that Smith-Mundt Act. That Smith-Mundt Act, I believe it was changed in 2013. And it pretty much allows, you could take it however you want to take it, but it pretty much allows for propaganda to be told and to be put out towards the American public, where before you couldn't put out propaganda to the American public. You could only put it out to the rest of the world, which is pretty interesting. But I mean, I can understand that. I can understand that. It's almost like a sports team where you have your information in-house. You don't necessarily want to give out other information. You could be like, you know, this person's getting healthy. They're working towards their end. You're not going to say everything and allow the competition to know exactly what's going on. So I understand it a little bit from a standpoint of, you know, putting that propaganda out to other countries. But obviously that could be a little bit problematic as well. But let's move on. Let's move on. And I can finally take this off the screen. Hold on, man. There we go. There we go. All right. So let's get to the main video of the show. We finally have gotten to this Kirk Franklin video. Let me share the screen. Kirk Franklin had some very interesting comments on Cam Newton's show. And we're going to take a look at him. Hold on. I need y'all opinion on this one. All right.
I believe that marriage has been weaponized in Western Christianity. Giving has been weaponized in Western Christianity. Sexuality has been weaponized. For example, any woman listening to this can attest in our culture. Don't be no 30, 35-year-old single black woman and go to the family reunion. All the older women are going to do them. They're going to look at you and wonder, why you not married?
Where your man at? Where your kids at?
Like it's a prerequisite for identity and value. That if you don't have a man, if you don't have kids, that something about you is broken. Do you understand how dysfunctional?
And I'm trying to do my best of playing the entire video. Then we'll go back and go through the video, and then I'll add my comments.
These messages are. Yeah. And how we super spiritualize these messages. Paul said, but marriage is a necessary distraction. I have many friends that were in ministry at church, and the church has told them, if you're going to be in ministry, you can't be single. We're not going to let you work with the youth ministry if you're single. You can't do this. I believe that marriage has been single. And so what people do, they quickly get married thinking that they're fulfilling God's will for their lives, but they are fulfilling man's dogma. You can be single and be used by God. You can be single and have purpose. Being married is not a prerequisite for God's hand on your life. It is not, but we've weaponized it. And then crucify people. Where my camera at?
Right
and
there.
And then crucify people when those same marriages don't.
Damn!
Single and
I'm going to go back to the beginning. What are y'all initial thoughts on this? What are y'all initial thoughts? This is how I look at it. And this is a video that Ant sent over. So Ant and I had a bit of a conversation about it, but obviously wanted to share it with y'all, have a bigger convo on it. When I first listened to it, and I do have to acknowledge, I come into it with a little bit of skepticism. Y'all know how I feel about some of these pastors. And so Ant wrote, why are you speaking on this, Kirk? What's the agenda here? I always believe going into it that these pastors or a lot of these people getting up here, they have a particular agenda. They have an agenda. And when I hear Kirk Franklin talking about women don't need to be married or they can still serve God, I just ask why. Like, why are you saying this? Like, why do you feel the need to get on board to say this? Why do you feel the need to let's go through the video. Let's go through the actual entire video, and then I'll stop it and address every single point.
In Western Christianity, giving has been weaponized in Western Christianity. Sexuality has been weaponized. For example, any woman listening to this can attest in our culture. Don't be no 30, 35-year-old single black woman and go to the family reunion. All the older women are going to do them. They're going to look at you and wonder, why you not married?
Where your man at?
Is there anything wrong with that? That's a serious question that I have. Is there anything wrong with that? The only thing that I would say that's wrong with it is the fact that those women that are looking at you that particular way, were they guiding you and coaching you along and raising you to become a wife? And the same thing works on the other side when it comes to becoming a husband. But he specifically decided to just address this with women. And he made the analogy. Now, you could say that he's talking about men and women, but the particular analogy that he chose was just addressing women. And it comes across like very Steve Harvey-ish. You feel what I'm saying? It's like there's a pattern of these older men that are trying to appease and trying to market themselves and become cooler to the younger crowd, especially to the younger women. Let me be very specific. The younger crowd of women trying to make themselves look cool, trying to say what makes women feel better, but maybe not necessarily telling them exactly what is needed. And that's the question that I have with this. What's the agenda? We have enough. I mean, you look around, the entire society tells women that they don't need to be married. The society pushes women to be more successful in corporate America, to define your level of success in that way, rather than more so in whatever your relationship role is, or whatever your role is within your family. So if we already have all these other different factors trying to convince our women that they don't need to be married, that they shouldn't prioritize being married, why would Kirk Franklin say this? Like, why are you trying to increase your audience among a particular demographic? Specifically, you said black women. So here you have, and answer me this. Does this convince women or men? He's talking about women, so I'm talking about women. Does this make women want to work on themselves to attract more of the energy that they're looking for in a family or in a significant other that they would be able to grow a family with? That's the question that I have. If you're listening to this as a young woman, are you inspired to say, you know what, let me look internally, because all change starts internally, right? So if I was talking to a group of young men, it would be the same thing. It would be the same thing. And Queez wrote, I took it as don't rush to get married without the work. See, and Queez took it a different way than I took it. When he says, and I'm gonna tell you why I took it. When he's talking about you can still serve God's purpose, or he said something similar to that, if you're not married, he didn't say that how you took it, Queez. He didn't say until the end, oh, people rush into these marriages and whatnot. He didn't say all these things until afterwards. The examples that he's using, he kind of leaves that at the end. Now, obviously, this is just a clip. So I'm just asking from afar, like, how do people take this? How do people take this? If this was said, if you told a group of, let's flip it a little bit. If you told a group of young men this same thing, what do you think it's going to lead to? Especially with us living during times where we're not getting married. We're not having kids. If you told a young man this, would he be more inclined to say, oh, nah, all right, then shoot, I don't need to get married. I don't need to have a family. I don't need to have kids. I don't need to have any of this stuff. Or would he say, oh, yeah, Kirk Franklin said that, oh, I'm going to get on my purpose. I'm going to make sure that I'm, trying to become the man that I would want to become to lead a family. Which would it make you do? And Ant just asked the question. He said, better question. Why is he on this platform? What is he promoting? Is this an attempt to garnish attention? It's always going to be that. It's always going to be that, in my opinion. But let's keep going with the video, and we'll point out some of the things that we may or may not have had issues with.
Where your kids at?
Like it's a prerequisite for identity and value that if you don't have a man, if you don't have kids, that something about you is broken.
If you don't have a man, if you don't have kids, then something about you is broken. I guess that leads us to a question where, I mean, does that mean that something is broken? If you don't, and let's not take it, if you don't have a man, or as a man that doesn't have a woman. I personally, I think about that all the time. And when you get to a certain age, at least this is how it was for me, you start to question certain things. And I don't think that it's wrong to question those things. When you're pointing the finger and, like Quee said, refocusing on looking internally, reflecting on like, where's some things that I can do better at. If I keep having these situations that aren't working, then I'm the common factor in those things. What can I improve? What can I work on? How can I do better to attract? How can I do better to put out a certain energy that's going to bring a certain energy back? I think that I'm just confused, because in a time where we all say that, whenever we talk about solutions, we all talk about whether it's marriage, government marriage, or if it's just, people coming together in a relationship, partnership, whatever you want to call it. We all say that that's the solution to a lot of these problems that we encounter or see other people in the community encountering across the board. So if we all see that this is an issue, then I just don't understand. I'm just getting and like I said, maybe it's just my bias towards Kirk Franklin, but as I'm hearing this, I'm hearing somebody trying to convince or saying certain things that are going to convince people to consult with their convenience of already not wanting to get married, already not wanting to have kids. And this just be the thing that, oh yeah, Kirk Franklin said I ain't gotta have kids to, I ain't gotta, have no kids to serve God's purpose. I don't gotta. That's just kind of what I hear. But let's keep looking at a little bit more. And I want to make sure that I'm trying to keep up with the chat. All right. So Lucille wrote, you got to be ready for marriage and children and not doing it because someone else wants you to do it based on your age. It's a good point. And I don't think that, I don't know. I obviously don't think that you should rush into anything based on age, but look what happens to us. Look what happens in our society right now, especially in America. We don't prioritize marriage. So therefore, and maybe we're not going to see the results of it for a couple generations, but us not prioritizing marriage, I look around, and especially when I compare my generation to my parents' generation, all of them were married, had families at this age. And I look around at my friend group, and there's a good amount of us, but there's also a good amount of us that are not there. When I sit down and I'm kicking it with my homegirls and stuff, and I see, the situations that they're in, it's almost like we're just a bit behind. And then what ends up happening, and I'll ask you this, how about this? If we're not preparing for marriage, especially for our young ladies, if we're not preparing our young ladies for marriage in their 20s, then what's going to end up happening in their 30s? That's when you actually, ladies, you tell me. I would assume that that's when the pressure starts to come in, and it's like, damn, I'm 35, and now I'm just realizing like, oh, I should have actually prioritized, having a family, finding a significant other, but I was prioritizing, my corporate job. I was prioritizing having fun. I was prioritizing just enjoying it and kicking it with my girls. I was prioritizing having hot girl summers, whatever that may be. And then I get to the point where I'm 35, and now I'm looking at life where it's like, oh, just from a biological standpoint, like now my time is ticking. Now I have even more pressure on me. So now with this added level of pressure, am I going to make a decision that's best for me? Or am I going to make a decision that, oh, I just got to hurry up and get married because I only have a short window to have kids? So my issue is just, why not just work on preparing us more to have more healthier relationships? So therefore, less women are going to the cookout unmarried, less men are going to the cookout unmarried. But I just feel that, we sit back and we wonder, like, oh, just why aren't people getting married? Well, we're not raised to get married. We're not raised to understand how to have relationships, how to communicate with each other. And most of us, what is it, up to 70 something percent? Most of us are growing up in a single parent household. So it's not even something that we see. So Ant wrote, there are many factors that may result in you being single at any age. It does not have to mean you're broken or unwanted, etc. Life just happens. That's a good point. Sometimes life does just happen. But me looking at it, I'm always going to try to look at it and figure out, what am I doing? Like, how can I better impact the situation? If this is a particular result that I'm looking to achieve, then how can I figure out on my end what I can do differently, what I can improve upon, any of these different things, what self-help books I need to read, do I need to go get therapy, all these different things to put myself in the best position to have that family. But obviously it'd be a good time, a healthy time, not a toxic relationship. So I just don't know if what he's saying, if it brings a positive, if it shines a light in a way that we need to shine the light on it, which is saying, like, okay, the reason why, let's get to the root of the problem. Why are people showing up to the cookouts, unmarried? Auntie, grandma, why don't did y'all raise us to have relationships? Did y'all equip us to have relationships? Or did you push us to do things that did not prioritize being in a relationship and having a family? So let's keep going with the video.
Do you understand how dysfunctional these messages are?
Yeah.
And how we super spiritualize these messages? Paul said, but marriage is a necessary distraction. I have many.
I don't know I know Cam made a big on that one, but I don't really know what Cam made that noise for. I'm not as familiar with that, with Paul saying that marriage is a necessary distraction. Cam seemed to just respond to the distraction, in my opinion, based on how I'm receiving it, that it's a distraction. But why is it a necessary distraction? And it almost reminds me, when you say marriage is a necessary distraction, think about this. And I'm going to go a little bit off on a tangent right here. Do you know that think about when you're in college, or you have a high school girlfriend, or girls in a relationship in high school and college? When a lady is in a relationship in high school and college, they may feel like they're missing out on a lot. But if a woman is not in a relationship, in my opinion, they're more likely to be doing things that may not put them in the best light when it comes to being prepared to have a significant other. I would say that a man being in a relationship, prevents you from being in certain situations as well, prevents us from being in certain situations that may not be the best situations that we need to be in. And I'm walking on eggshells a little bit here, because I don't want the conversation to get into something totally different. But when you're not in a relationship, you are more likely to entertain and deal with a lot more men. So when you say a necessary distraction, perhaps a relationship always is a necessary distraction. Because what it's distracting you from is all those other things that don't necessarily serve that family purpose that a lot of us are looking for. Or let's say when you're not in a relationship, you're more likely to act on temptations that may not be best for you, that may not align with your morals, that may not align with your principles and values. But let me, that necessary distraction, answer necessary distraction. I'll have to look into that one. When I first heard it, I wasn't really sure how to take it, but that's kind of what just came to mind as I was having the conversation with you. Like, when you're in a relationship with a girl or a guy, in high school and college, they have a lot less time to be out here hunting or getting hunted on by, a lot of other people. Now, it's still going to happen, but it's at least going to distract you from maybe acting on a lot of those things that you otherwise would. Ant wrote, that's interesting. I won't say we shouldn't prioritize marriage. I will say our generation does not know how to prioritize marriage. They think prioritizing marriage means rushing to find a partner. I agree 100%. I agree. And Alana said, hey, Ant, hey, Lucille. I agree 100% with that. And we're just not taught it. We're just not taught it, which is strange because you would think that if something was important, that we would be taught these things. Why are we not taught this from a young age? Why do we go to school and we learn how to put a condom on a banana, or look at some of these strange books that are now in the libraries, but we can't just have conversations with kids about simple things that are not vulgar, but actually having communication with a significant other. Why don't we have certain classes on that? A lot of times, why don't our parents teach us it? If we're fortunate to have two parents in the household, then we can see it. But for a lot of us that aren't, we never actually see and get to learn how to interact with a significant other until we're actually in it. Alana wrote, perhaps men and women are so busy keeping up with surviving the daily that it distracts us from planning for our future. Know what you want, have a plan, but be flexible and be wary of distraction. That's a good point as well, Alana. And I think that that's something that a lot of us struggle with. We can't afford to have kids. I was talking to somebody on Saturday. We did a program. Shout out to Amir. He put together the Kawaja Foundation. They put together a resume writing and interviewing kind of training workshop. And one of the fathers and mothers, they were there with their two kids. And one of the kids he goes to FDU, and the other kid, I forget where he's getting ready to go. But the FDU, Fairleigh Dickinson, in Teaneck, Hackensack, right around the corner, it costs $40,000. $40,000. How can you even afford to have a kid? Their college, it's insane to me. When you think about the inflation that's going on, when you think about how much just groceries cost just for us when we go to the store, in our minds, we're like, yo, how could I even think about taking care of a child? Especially if we're not in a relationship. Now, in a relationship, in my opinion, that's one of the best ways to save money. You're able to share things. That's what's great about having a quote unquote partner. Now I've been saying this partner word a lot. But yeah, so Queez wrote, we are being programmed not to come together and have strong families. That's my point, Queez. That's what I just don't understand. Like, why is there an emphasis on making people feel better about not being married rather than actually coaching people and guiding people to become husband material, to become wife material? And Lucille saying the same thing. All right, so I think we agree on it. Lucille wrote, young people have to be prepared for marriage. Ant wrote, we are not taught these things because it does not support the agenda of capitalist America for African American or Black people. I would agree. I would agree. And you know what? An interesting video that I saw the other day, they were talking about the school system. And there were two different gentlemen talking. It was on Anton Daniel's show. And Anton was having a back and forth with a gentleman that was saying that the school system, the education system, is very important because that is what is supposed to raise our kids. That is what's supposed to teach them the lessons and prepare them for adulthood. And Anton was sitting back saying, like, no, that's what a parent's job is to do. You can't rely on an education system to do that. And when we've had the conversation before on here, the intent of the education system, what I think Ann is alluding to, even in the beginning, where I'm not sure if it was the Rockefeller, I forget what family that started the education system, but it was just to create and train employees. That's it. That's it. It's babysitting. Let's just be real. All right, so Alana, Ant wrote, Alana, I'd like to challenge your thought. I think if someone's in survival mode, it's more of a reason to take the necessary steps to build a good foundation for self, which is steps towards marriage. Yeah, I see both sides. I see both sides, but I think that we're not taught, to your point, Ant, we're not taught even the benefits that come with marriage. We're not taught it. We're not taught like, oh, these are the benefits. I mean, maybe not to say that you should only do it for the benefits, but we clearly see sometimes the reasons to not want to get married. That's dangled in front of us all the time. So maybe if we saw some of the positives, just like it's nice to see positive relationships, just two people having a good, solid relationship, just being around them, it's a good feeling. So maybe understanding more of the benefits that come along with it and pushing some of those benefits and highlighting those will help people get more on board and help people invest and do some self-reflection, like Queez was talking about earlier in the show, just to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prepare ourselves for marriage, whether being, a husband or a wife. Got to get those 529 for your kids. What's a 529? In American racism equals classism. In American racism, that's a good point, bro. Ant wrote, that's a Queez wrote, that's a savings plan. All right, so we'll watch the rest of this video and then we're gonna move on to the next one. Speaking of Steve Harvey,
that were in ministry at church, and the churches told them, if you're gonna be in ministry, you can't be single.
And that's hold on.
Not gonna let you work with the youth ministry if you're single. You can't do this. I believe them.
What do y'all think about that aspect of it? That you can't work with the youth if you're single. You can't have a leadership position in the church if you're single. Yo, that's a tough one because we all acknowledge, right? We all acknowledge that. Alana got me. Alana said, love the purple, David. So we all acknowledge that we learn from seeing, right? We don't learn from what our parents tell us. We learn from what we see our parents doing. The same thing with anything else, right? Most of us are visual learners. Most people are going to learn. You're not going to be able to tell them to do one thing and them see you do another thing and them not question it in their minds. Some people can. Some people still can learn from that, understand it. But when we have so many people that I'm going back and forth in my head. When we know that we need examples, and I think this happens in politics a lot where they say that you have to be married to kind of show that representation. Is it important in the church to say, like, hey, to have these positions, you need to be married because these are the examples that we want the kids to see. We want the kids to learn how a man interacts with his wife, how a wife interacts with her husband. We want the kids to see that. We want somebody who's speaking, because let's just be honest, somebody from a single mindset or somebody that's not married speaks a totally different language because they have not had that experience. Listening to Queez about marriage is going to be totally different than listening to me about marriage. I would listen to Queez about marriage more because Queez is married. If you've been married, I'm going to listen to you more just because that's something, an experience that you've had. So therefore, if that does apply and that holds true, then even though it may seem unfair, is it best to have that be one of the, I don't know, the part of the criteria to who can have a leadership position in the church? Like, how do y'all look at that? I don't know. Let me get to the rest of these comments and then we'll move on with this video. Alana wrote, Ant, totally agree. Your version is a strong mindset, which many are lacking. The strong mindset will eventually prevail. Ant wrote, wait, I love the purple. Ant wrote he disagrees with something. I'm sure he's going to tell us exactly what it is. Maya wrote, I disagree. If you're going to be inappropriate, you will do that single or married. I disagree. And I know Maya is referring to whether you're in a relationship. I think you're referring to the distraction piece, right? When they said marriage is a necessary distraction. I just believe that, and see, it's not necessarily about inappropriate. And it's not necessarily about what's inappropriate because different things are deemed inappropriate. And I'm glad that you brought this up. So Maya's talking about the marriage being a necessary distraction. And what I said, as far as when you're in a relationship, it prevents you from maybe doing some other things that wouldn't necessarily be aligned or that you would see best. Put it this way. You may, if you're not in a relationship from 18 to 25, you may go around, you may say, hey, I'm not in a relationship as a young woman. It's okay for me to have casual sex. I'm not in a relationship. Clearly, I'm going to be having sex with more partners probably in that time frame than if I had a relationship that entire time, or if I had 2 or 3 relationships at a time, whatever it may be. If I'm not in a relationship, I would think that most women these days within this culture and how society influences us are more likely to have, let's say, a lot more partners, sexual partners. So that may not necessarily be deemed inappropriate while you're 18 to 25. If you're 23, if you're 25, when you're 25, you're not necessarily looking at that as inappropriate behavior. But then when you get to 35 or you get to 40, then you may look back on that behavior and say, you know what, that probably wasn't aligned where I needed to go, but I just wasn't seeing things at that particular time. So that's my point, as far as it may not be inappropriate. Like, that's for everybody to judge. But what I'm saying is it's going to put you in a position to where you are now, you just have more exposure. You just have more exposure. So Maya wrote, better to not get married to be a trophy, just to be in leadership. Yeah, Maya, you may be a little delayed. I don't know. But yeah, I would say that, obviously, you don't want to just get married to become a trophy. But I think what we've all agreed on is the fact that we haven't been coached. We haven't been raised to be married. So therefore, regardless of us trying to move towards that, we're not going to be prepared. So therefore, we're gonna have to keep touching the stove. Why does everybody have to keep touching the stove? Why can't we teach the next generation, like, hey, you see this scar? I touched the stove. This is what you don't do. Or hey, you see this amazing thing over here? This is how I got it. Learn from me. You don't necessarily have to go through all the things yourself. So I heard a quote where it said, a smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from the mistakes of others, or something. It was something like that. So I don't know if that makes sense, but and Queez wrote, yeah, you can't talk about it if you don't live it. I agree. Ant wrote, single is not always the result of poor leadership. Wisdom and experience can come from anywhere and anyone. I agree. We're not talking about couples counselors for kids. We're just talking about leaders, unless I missed when he said what they are leading. Yeah, just not even couples counseling for kids. Learning how to actually communicate, with learning how to communicate. And if you can learn how to put a condom on a banana, I'm pretty sure that we can teach the kids how to communicate with their girlfriend or boyfriend. If you're teaching them how to have sex, I would assume that we can, teach them, like, how do you communicate in this situation? How do you problem solve? When you get upset, what are some things that you do? Who do you talk to? Who do you have guiding you in this particular relationship? Right? Just like we have a coach on the football field, just like we have a teacher in the classroom. Relationships are probably harder than any of those things, and we have nobody guiding us in most cases. So where do we think we're going to land? We're going to land maybe either looking at relationships from a bitter standpoint, not being prepared, not being the best prepared to be a husband, not being prepared to be a wife. And then we land exactly where we are right now, which is why people are just not prioritizing marriage, relationships, and kids, in my opinion. Maya wrote, I agree with that, Dak, but I'm just thinking people will marry anyone to be able to get into leadership. Oh, I get what you're saying, Maya. So Maya's talking about, like, getting into the leadership positions, like with politics or within the church. I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's a problem. But that's more of a problem where that's just the insecurity. That's an insecurity. And what does that come from? In my opinion, it still goes back from us not being taught those things at a younger age, or us not being guided those things at a younger age. It's very hard to play basketball your entire life. You've been playing basketball your entire life, and now you get to college and you want to play water polo. It's very hard to make that transition. It's a lot easier if you've been playing water polo your whole life, or maybe you've been introduced to it at in some capacity. So now when you actually want to play water polo in college, you're more familiar with it. We play basketball our whole lives and then expect to just, it's water polo time, and end up drowning. We end up drowning because we've been playing basketball the whole time. We're developing different muscles, different skills, different techniques, different qualities that prepare us for basketball, but have nothing to do with when it comes to water polo. And then we get into water polo and wonder why we fail. So if I was, more of a Kirk Franklin, or if I was speaking on these things, mine would just be like, okay, what do we think that we're going to eventually want? And this is where a lot of the elders come in. Our aunts, our parents, our grandparents, family, friends. This is where they can help prepare us, because obviously it's like going into, we can't even figure out what we want to major in college. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're not going to make certain decisions at 15 and 16 with the mindset like, oh, I'm doing this to prepare myself for when I'm 30. We need older people, the elders, to guide us there. So I think we're pretty much saying the same thing. Quee said, be the change. It starts with me. Practice what you preach, the golden rule, etc. Yeah, okay, I got what you meant. You meant being married into leadership. Yeah. Ant wrote, right, Maya, I think Kirk is isolating more people than teaching them how and what we need as a culture. That's what I took it as. Tank K, talk to us, Ant. Maya wrote, I guess I had a skewed view. I was thinking they wanted them to not be single because they don't want them in leadership and dating in the church. That's another reason. But I'm just talking about it from a standpoint of, if you're representing, like if you're held in high regards, and we know how kids are with their teachers in school, with their coaches, with their leaders in the church, whoever it may be. Kids will hold them in higher regards than their parents and want to imitate their lives and learn from them because they're cooler. They're not their parents, right? So therefore, I'm back and forth on it. Like, I can understand how that would be detrimental in certain ways, where certain people wouldn't get certain positions, but it's just the understanding. It's just a reality that, hey, in order for us to be properly taught and prepared to become significant others, to become husbands and wives, then we need that. So it's like, is it okay to hurt the feelings of somebody who's single in a leadership position, to hurt their feelings, if it means that somebody else will be in that position who will be a better representation for allowing those kids to learn from the life that they're actually living, rather than somebody just speaking from a perspective that they can't talk on from experience. That's what I'm saying. Ant wrote, sometimes it's not a lack of education, but a lack of trust in those teaching. Touching the stove. Ant changed his pick mid-chat. The same way the dating checklist was created, we should an OG checklist for self-growth and development. I like that. No, he's talking about your avatar. Marriage should definitely be pushed, but for the correct reason. I agree. Yeah, it was time, Q. It shouldn't be pushed without guidance or preparation. Agreed. So we all agree on that. So wherever Kirk Franklin is, and clearly we only saw a clip, wherever he is, I think we all just agree that there needs to not only be marriage pushed, but it needs to be pushed for the right reasons, and it needs to be accompanied with proper preparation. Because if not, we're going to get ourselves in a lot of toxic situations and relationships that are going to be even far more detrimental than somebody maybe just never getting in a situation at all. So, all right, let's move on. So speaking of the Steve Harvey type guys, I got a funny video that I just wanted to throw in here with Dr. Umar. So I don't know about y'all, but there's been a lot of push for it seems like a lot of black men in particular are being targeted for not wanting to show their support for Kamala. And we already showed Ricky Smiley calling people out. DL Hughley's been doing it for not, y'all black men not supporting Kamala, Ricky Smiley. And then Steve Harvey, I guess, did something as well. Let's take a look at this video that the legend, Dr. Umar, he put out regarding the election. Let's take a look. He said he saw it. I only was able to find the video on my dog Anton's platform. But, we could show Anton some love as well. He always has some good content. If you ever want to check out a cool page, Anton's got some good content.
Ricky Smiley and Steve Harvey, listen. If Uncle Steve Harvey and Uncle Ricky Smiley want to go hard for Kamala Harris, that is their business. If Ricky Smiley and Steve Harvey want to go hard for Kamala Harris, they have a right to do that. They have a right to do that. What they don't have a right to do is shame other Africans into voting for her. They cannot do that. They were wrong for that. You can't shame people into not voting for someone, you know. Steve Harvey's logic didn't make any sense. He said if we don't vote, we won't get nothing. Well, you've been voting and you ain't got nothing. It's time to hold the vote until we get something. It's time to hold the vote until we get something.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about this? I'm hearing, especially a lot of young people, and then people that I think this is their first kind of go around into getting into actual politics. I think they voted before, but like I got a close friend of mine. He's voted before, and I believe previously he was more probably along the lines of like definitely a Democrat. But I think he was more along the lines where he probably thought years ago, yo, Trump's racist. The same path that a lot of us went down. I know I went down it. And now he's saying like, yo, I'm not voting. I don't think I'm going to vote anymore. Yo, they're not taking us seriously. And I've heard this from a couple of younger people as well. And I kind of giggle a little bit about it. I got to be real with y'all, because that's where I was before. That's where I was before. I did not vote the last two elections. Did not vote the last two elections because I told myself, I said, you know what? I'm no longer voting if people are not going to take me seriously. Everybody says your ancestors died for the right for you to vote. No, they died for the right for you to have an impact, for your vote to matter. So if people are showing you consistently that your vote no longer matters, did you think that our ancestors really just want us to just keep doing something? Keep doing the same thing, or wanted us to use our brains and say, hey, this hasn't been working. Maybe we should do something else. Not saying that we have to do something else, but let's actually discuss what something else would look like, how we can leverage our vote best. And that's what a lot of other groups do. So looking at it specifically now, just talking about the Black community, I remember the first election that I decided not to vote in, and it was it Hillary versus Trump? Hillary versus Trump. When Trump won, I did not vote in that election. And the first thing that I listened to the next day on my way to work, I was crossing the Tappan Zee, and I believe it was, I always forget, either Bill Lehrer or Dan Lehrer, I forget. The main topic of his entire show was how people who typically voted for the Democrats pulled away and did not vote for them this election. What is the main point that we hear a lot of times where we say, oh, 20% of Black men are now leaving the party or voting Republican, leaving the Democrats. There's a huge chunk of people that are leaving the Democrats, and now 20% of Black men are going to support Trump, and people saying a lot of things like this. The reason behind it is because you're not going to get the attention of somebody unless you're willing to take a risk, willing to sacrifice something, willing to lose something. We think that we're just going to keep voting and just keep doing the same thing and get a different result. No, when people keep playing with us, just like in a relationship, if your dude, we talking about relationships, right? If a dude keeps cheating on you, if a woman keeps cheating on you and you keep taking them back, then they have no reason to stop cheating on you. The only way for you to let them know that you're serious and that if they don't change their actions moving forward is for you to say, hey, I'm not going to continue to be here. So I don't see how we can see it so clearly when it comes to relationships, but then when it comes to political parties, we see it a different way. Now, let me say this. I'm voting in this election, and I'm realizing that everything just is a cycle. And this is why I'm talking to myself first and foremost, but this is why we can't get upset at people who are not thinking the same way that we're thinking at this particular time. Now, does it suck? Does it delay the process? Does it delay the change? Does it slow down what could happen fast, but what may end up just eventually happening anyway? I believe that it delays the process when people are not pushing themselves and challenging themselves to think outside the box or to think differently rather than to just do the same thing that they've been doing. It should always be about constantly evolving. It should always be, how do we best leverage our vote? Just me personally, or within our family, how do we best leverage our vote? How do we make sure that we're voting for the right things that are going to allow us to properly to take advantage of this country that we live in and to be as successful as possible? That's how I'm going to be thinking. Let's keep going with a little bit of the video.
Ricky Smiley. I love my brother, but he was pretty emotional. He's talking about Supreme Court Justice Ketanji swearing in Vice President Harris. They both belong to Black Greek fraternities. They'll get sworn in on Dr. King's Earth Day. That's all empty symbolism. We're done with that.
It's empty symbolism. Empty symbolism. We got a Delta swearing in an AKA on MLK Day who was an Alpha. That's what Ricky Smiley was saying. It's all symbolism. We continue to fall in love with symbolism. And that's going to lead us to our next topic. But we're going to watch a little bit more of the video. But our next topic, just to give you guys a heads up, it's talking about what I mentioned briefly the other day. Is we're going to talk about what are the extreme things on the Democratic side, what are the extreme things on the Republican side. So let's keep listening to a little bit of the video, and then
it's a
we'll
cold day in hell when I have to agree with Umar Johnson. And lately I've been agreeing with him more than I've been disagreeing with him. And unfortunately, and fortunately, this is an example of how we have to separate issue by issue and objectively make an assessment based off of what people are saying. And, I may not necessarily agree with him when it comes to the simping and how it is that Black women and relationships and all of this other stuff. And I certainly don't agree with him with how it is that he's finessing when it comes to school and all of that. But this is a completely separate issue.
I want to move back. Get sworn in on Dr. King's Earth Day. That's all empty symbolism. We're done with that.
It's a cold day in hell when I have to agree with Umar Johnson. Automatically gonna
on the solar return. So what that got to do? Tangibles. That's all empty.
Certain demographic areas because people are automatically going to vote blue. And so why would they ever offer you anything or add value into your life when they already understand exactly how you're going to vote?
That's the point that I was trying to make. If I already know, this is how this goes. This is how this goes. And I actually was listening to this Dan Bilzerian. Are you guys familiar with this guy, Dan? And I'm probably pronouncing his last name wrong. Dan Bilzerian. Interesting interview with Patrick Bet-David. And in that interview, he was talking about how when he contributes to these political campaigns and politicians, where he's giving politicians $100,000 and they're calling them up every week. They're calling them up like, hey, what do you need? What do you need? Because they want to make sure that they serve him because they're getting something from him in return. If they already know that you're going to continuously support them, you're going to continue to donate a certain amount of money, whether it's a big amount or a small amount, you're going to continue to do these things just because you've always done them, just because they know that they could dangle a little symbolism in front of your face and you go along with it. If they know that we can do those things, or if we're going to continue to support, then why would they? Put yourselves in their positions. Why would they do anything for us? We all talk about how all politicians are just selfish, that they only become politicians because they want power, all these different things. Why would you trust somebody with those qualities, somebody with that mindset, somebody with those goals? Why would you trust them to just do the right thing in regards to this situation? Why do you think that they're just going to say, oh, this group has been supporting us for so long, so let's do something for them? No. Their entire focus is on who is not going to support us. Who do we need to bring on board that's not already just going to vote with us? So they'll do all the celebrating and do all the symbolism with this and that. They'll write Black Lives Matter on the street to make people feel better. I don't understand what it does, but just cause more commotion, cause more fear, cause more hatred. But this is just what people do. Let's keep going a little bit, and then we're going to move on.
Let me see what more he has to say.
That's all empty symbolism. We're done with that.
Agreed.
That's all empty symbolism. We're done with that. You have to give us
empty calories,
tangibles, not symbols, brother Ricky Smiley. tangibles, not symbols. One is an AKA, one is a Delta. What that got to do with miseducation? One is an AKA,
Facts.
one is a Delta. What that got to do with mass incarceration?
Facts.
One is an AKA, one is a Delta. What that got to do with gentrification and homelessness? That is nothing but empty symbolism. The member of one black sorority swearing in the member of another black sorority on the solar return of a brother ancestor, Dr. King, who belonged to a black male fraternity. That's all fine and well. But telling black people they should vote for the symbol, telling black people they should vote for the symbol is not going to serve us, Brother Ricky.
Meanwhile,
Just want to leave that with y'all. All right, so Ant wrote, I never understood why we were okay with the idea of trampling and driving over the concept of Black Lives Mattering. Shaking my head. Bro, symbolism plays out in some of the dumbest ways. One of the worst things that the most, what do they call it? Cringe things that I've seen in a while was when Nancy Pelosi, I think it was Nancy Pelosi, and they all were wearing like the African attire or kente cloth or whatever they had, and they were taking a knee. Very uncomfortable. It just was uncomfortable. Like just seeing that. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't uncomfortable for y'all. It was uncomfortable for me. All right, let me move this down real quick. All right, so what is extreme? What makes something extreme for you all? So this is what I did. And maybe you guys can help me out with the chat. Let's focus on the Republicans first. Let's focus on the Republicans. If you had to think about what are some extreme things, let's try to be as unbiased and as objective as possible. Let's just be real. Can we be real with each other? What are some extreme things? And this is what I did. I wrote down some extreme things that I see that the Republican parties are doing, and then some extreme things that I think the Democrats are doing. I need y'all to help me out. What are certain things that are extreme to you, and what makes things extreme? So we'll answer. When I went into it, and initially I was thinking like, okay, what makes something extreme for me? Something that just my morals and principles and values are here, and it's just completely in an entirely different space. That's how I kind of see something being extreme. And it's easier for us to start with the Dems because it would be a lot more easier just for me to come up with these extremes just because they're a little bit, well, we'll go over it. Let's start with Republicans. What are extremes to you? What are extremes to you? I'll give you a couple of mine. All right, so I wrote down a complete federal abortion ban. That's extreme to me. You know, not having the pill. If somebody said like, hey, you can't do anything at any point in the pregnancy, it doesn't matter if the woman is raped, doesn't matter anything, none whatsoever, not even the pill. That to me would seem I believe that would be an extreme. And this is more of an unbiased extreme. And the reason why I actually maybe struggle to say that that's extreme is because I can't stand how abortions have been used, in my opinion, when Kirk Franklin talks about, you know, the things that he was saying have been weaponized. No, abortions, in my opinion, have been weaponized against impoverished communities, which mostly happen to be Black. They've been weaponized. When you look at the amount of abortions that occur, it's just unnecessary. It's unnecessary. It's a lot on women. It's a lot on men. Clearly, it's a lot on women because the women go through it in a different way. But I still am able to look at the situation and say, okay, a complete ban, like that's a little extreme. Why can't we just, figure out some type of common ground? That would be an extreme example for me. The next thing would be, hold on, involvement, I would say, in a lot of these wars. In particular, when I see Nikki Haley sign on a bomb with a greeting or something, say, go get them, guys, a bomb that's going to kill Palestinians, I see that as extreme behavior. I see it as extreme when we just played the Netanyahu speech the other day and people are up there cheering. I don't think it's a time to cheer. I think when you look at that situation, it's very clear to see right now at this point. Let's just look at this point in time right now. It's very extreme what's happening. It's very lopsided what's happening. So therefore, I think it's a very extreme stance that the Republicans have taken rather than what I think the right approach should be, to be the big brother and come in and say, hey, we're stopping this right now. I don't care what, we're stopping it now. Unless y'all want problems with us, what does the big brother come in and do? It's like, yo, y'all stopping this right now. And if y'all want to continue to fight, then y'all can fight me. That's what a big brother does, right? So if America comes in, I just see that as an extreme position, because I'm looking at it and I'm just like, yo, this is just wrong. If you didn't think it was overboard in the beginning, if you thought it was just defense, it is cool. But there's no way that you can look at this situation and think that, in my opinion, anything outside of a ceasefire is extreme. So those are two examples when it comes to, let me see if anybody wrote any examples. So, all right. So y'all didn't feel comfortable giving y'all examples. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. I'll frontline it. All right. So these are just and I want to be very clear. So the extreme examples that I gave was a complete federal abortion ban. That would mean like the country just saying, hey, there's no abortions. It's a federal law. That's what it is. I think that's extreme. It's extreme. I think that when it comes to our involvement with Israel and Palestine and trying to choose sides, I get that Israel's an ally, but I also get that there's a level of humanity as a human being that we all should have, and certain principles and foundations, just neighborly, principles that we all should have. And look at the situation. If one of my family members or one of my friends is doing something that has gone overboard and it's just wrong or whatever, I feel like, yo, I need to, you got to say something. So just for the sake of humanity, in my opinion, like, okay, I understand initially, hey, something happens. That entire situation seems to be about get back, get back, get back, get back. No different than gangs in Chicago. Oh, you did this to my side. All right, I'm gonna do this to you, your side, this side. And obviously, when people try to figure out where it all started, there's conflicting views. But I'm just talking about right now, as the United States being the greatest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world, I believe that it's extreme to do anything outside of going in there and saying a ceasefire right now, period. That's just my stance. So now let's move to the Democratic side. What do I think are extremes when it comes to things that the Democrats do? The trans agenda, whether that's the books that they're feeding the kids in school, with trying to turn everybody gay, with allowing drag queens to read in libraries, with having, like Tim Waltz putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. All these things are extreme to me. Kids going to school and identifying as animals, and kids going to school, and you got a little boy going to school telling the teacher, telling the counselors that they think that they're a girl, and the parents don't even have to be notified. I think that that's extreme. I think the nerve of you to feel that you do not have to tell me immediately when my child tells you that they think they're born a boy and they think that they're a girl, or if they think that they're a kitty cat. I've heard, and this is just what I heard. So this is not going to be on the segment of dumb ish I said the other day. I'm letting y'all know this is just something I heard in conversation where, and this just seems like a lot. Somebody should look this up. But I heard that somewhere somebody had to bring like a kitty litter box because one of these kids thought that they said that they identified with being a cat. That's extreme to me. When I look at the migrant crisis, when I look at you intentionally welcoming people illegally, I think that that's extreme. And I think it's extreme both to Americans and how it impacts us. And I also think that it's extreme because you're encouraging people to do a lot of to do something illegally. And then when they get to that border, if you look into the more I learn about this border crisis, the more that I learn that there's a lot more into it. And you look at the child trafficking that's going on at the border, kids being taken away, sold to sex trafficking, all these different things. They're happening at the border. And here you have politicians, you have the vice president, you have the president, you have all these different governors pretty much welcoming people to do something illegally. I think that that's extreme. I think that when you have these rules that are set up to where you can steal a certain amount in stores and get away with it and it just be a slap on the wrist, I think that's extreme. I think, yeah, the migrants, and when I say it's extreme to Americans, you have migrants coming into already impoverished areas. These are extreme things. So I guess when I asked myself, going back to the initial question I had, what makes something extreme? In some ways, it's, based on whether or not it violates my principles and morals, how I see things. I definitely would say that. In other ways, I guess I identify things being extreme as just things that prevent us from just reaching some type of common ground. So like a federal complete abortion ban. Yo, all right, we get it. We get your religion. We get all that. But everybody does not subscribe to your religion. Everybody does not subscribe to your way of life. And I understand that. We shouldn't condone or we shouldn't promote abortions. And I told y'all, I hate the fact that these abortions are promoted the way that they are, especially based on the society that we're living in, where casual sex is promoted the way it is. And I think it's just big business when it comes to Planned Parenthood. I do. And I think Planned Parenthood are just big contributors to a lot of these Democratic campaigns. So I do hate that aspect of it. But I just feel like just when you go into a negotiation and say, hey, federal complete abortion ban, I think that may prevent us from reaching some type of common ground, something that just makes, a little bit more sense. Or is that just more feasible? I guess that's the right word. So those are how I look at things. And then my last question would be, do we vote based on the extremes or based on the essentials? What do y'all think? Do you think that we vote based on extremes? Like when you look at these lists that I have, and I had to ask myself that, am I voting based on these things, which I'm looking at it like, hey, which group, of course I want to vote with which group is going to be most beneficial for me, and how I think which is going to be most beneficial for society, like American society. That's what I actually prioritize over just me. I'll be totally honest. When I'm looking at a candidate and seeing like, hey, who's going to be best for society? That's the initial thing. Then the second thing is, what do I have to lose from a lot of these candidates if they do win? And then you start to look at the extremes and you say like, hey, which group's extremes am I a bit more comfortable with? Which group's extremes are going to impact society in a bigger way? I don't know. That's up for us to, I guess, figure out internally. And then just go from there. But I do think that we should ask ourselves that question, because when we're deciding who we're going to vote for, and we look at it like, hey, once we include these extremes, or is it just about the essentials? Is it about, hey, who am I going to have more money at the end of the year based on who's in office? Who's just going to make sure that I get the most in tax breaks? Who's going to make sure that I get the most in my Social Security? Who's going to make sure that my student loans are forgiven? Who's going to make sure? And the list goes on, right? Do we see these things as essentials, or do we see these things as extremes? So it's just something for us to consider. So I think we have everything covered, and we're getting ready to finish it out with this Sunday. Remember, I told you about the Sunday word that I gave? We're going to turn it into a Monday word. But hold on, let me catch up with Ant's comment first. So Ant wrote, I think a lot of people vote on extremes because it's an easy way to make a decision without doing homework. Interesting. Yeah, I'll tell you this. Whether or not people vote on extremes, I don't know. But I know that people try to encourage other people who to vote for based on extremes. Like when we turn on the news station, everything we hear is an extreme. Oh, you're going to go back to slavery. Oh, they're trying to turn your kids into turn your little boys into little girls, all of them. Like everything is extreme. And they may or may not be extreme. Just because they're extreme, some of them are actually pretty, I would say, that are true. But yeah. I think that we vote. A lot of people vote on extremes, and even if you're not voting on extremes, we have to be very aware of, especially in this light of propaganda, that we are being a lot more focused and intentional as far as what we are using to sway us one way or another. It's more talking points than educated opinions. I agree. All right, so let's move on. Hold on. Let me actually get this off the screen. Let me actually show this. Hold on. Let me do this. Hold on. The Monday word. Hold on. Can we do that? Oh, wait. No. Hold on 1 second. I want it on the bottom of the screen, man. Come on now. All right, there we go. So the Monday word. All right, so yesterday I slept in a little bit and I woke up and it was storming. And I love sleeping in the rain. And I decided that because I wanted to, the day before, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get up tomorrow and do a Sunday word. And I started to try to write it Saturday night, but I didn't really have anything to write. Nothing was really coming to mind. But as soon as I woke up Sunday, boom, it's like I had everything. And I realized that a lot of us, when it comes to storms, and even as we think about storms, whether actually rainstorms or storms that we're going through in our life, challenging times where we feel like, yo, I can't catch a break. Every day something negative is happening. Those storms. What do we hear mostly? We hear weathering the storm, right? How to weather the storm. And when I looked up the definition of weather the storm, I'm gonna tell y'all exactly what. Let me tell y'all exactly what it said. All right, so weather the storm meaning. It says weather the storm is an idiom that means to endure and overcome something difficult, often with minimal impact. To endure and overcome something difficult. So I said, nah, we don't need to be weathering the storm. We need to be embracing the storm and everything that comes with it. Because through those storms, that's where we're going to get all the lessons, all the skills, all the sharpening, all the pain points that we're going to feel that let us know that, hey, you got to work on this particular area. The storm is what allows us to see the things that we need to work on. No different than if we're playing sports. If we're playing sports, when we're going through tough times, those times are just highlighting certain areas in which we need to still continue to develop in, that we need to still continue to grow in. When we have a bad game and we look at those things that just continuously show up, if we have bad habits where we consistently do something wrong, what ends up happening? It shows up in the game. It's going to show up in the game until we decide to actually work on those things. What ends up happening? You give up this is what always happens in football all the time. If a cornerback gave up, like I had a bad game or gave up a couple long passes the previous game, you know that you're getting challenged the next game, that their coach is going to, because what? They already know, like, damn, your mind. They want to test to see where your mind is on everything, to see if you address the problem that clearly showed up in the previous game, if you addressed it, worked on those things, and improved upon those things. So that's what the storm creates. And a lot of times we'll run from the storm or try to endure the storm instead of just running towards it and embracing it, with open arms. Because when I think about what it takes anything to grow, it takes a lot of times what we would think of as opposing elements, right? Rain and sun. Let's look at a plant. Like, I'm looking at some of these plants that I have in the room. It takes both rain and it takes sun for all those plants to grow. Now, those can be looked at as opposing elements, but in all actuality, they're really complementary elements. And that's the same thing when we have these storms, these setbacks in life. The good times we look at as almost like a opposite, looking at the elements being opposite. We look at the good times as an opposite to the storms, the negative times, or what we deem as negative, where we're going through a bunch of different things. When in all actuality, they're complementary. And those two things, being focused on both and embracing both, is what allows us to grow. And I'm going to give you an example where sometimes we'll look at, and we've kind of talked about this before, where you have somebody that may grow up in a perfect environment, and they don't have any challenges their entire lives, and then when they get to 30 or 40 and they're dealing with something, a setback, it's hard for them to actually embrace it and to grow from it, right? And it's almost like the same thing. Like I got this plant over here, right here. I have this plant that stays inside the house when I'm in Jersey. This plant, it's flourishing, big, beautiful green leaves. And I have the same plant in Miami. It looks bare, it looks struggling, it looks sick, it looks like it's starving for food. But it keeps pushing through. It's only got about like 3 leaves on it. But what I realized is that the foundation, the actual roots, the stem is much thicker on the Miami plant because the Miami plant's outside. So it has to endure all the elements. It's very windy on the balcony. So most of the time when I'm going back to Miami, it's fell down. I got to pick it back up. But I realized that it has such a strong foundation, and it has such a strong foundation because it embraced the storm, because it went through tougher elements than this one went through. So even though this one appears to be flourishing, in a lot of ways, it's not as prepared for the world as the other plant is. So I wrote down a couple different notes. And even when you think about going to the gym, what are we doing when we go to the gym? We're breaking down our muscles to then regenerate stronger muscles, right? But when we're breaking down our muscles, what do we also have to do? We have to make sure that we're eating the right things, so therefore we can feed those broken down muscles so that they grow into stronger muscles when they regenerate. It's the same thing when we're going through storms in our life. We have to make sure that we're feeding ourselves the right thing, feeding ourselves a positive outlook on things. That's where the embracing comes, and looking at it from that perspective compared to looking at it from an enduring perspective. When we endure something, it's like, oh man, like how much longer I got? When we embrace it, it's more of a mindset where it's like, yo, I got an opportunity to learn some things, man. I'm trying to see what this phase, this season that I'm going through right now, that is challenging me in all these different ways. I need to make sure that I'm going into a mindset where I'm just excited for the things that I'm going to learn during that season. It goes back to the same thing where we talked about that saying that we always use, where tough times create strong men create easy times create weak men create hard times. How do we figure out the proper balance to challenging ourselves, to embracing the challenges, and to also embracing the wins? That's something that I struggle with. To embrace it, we don't need to just embrace the storms. A lot of people out here, we just embrace the grind. We embrace the grind, and then when we get a win, it's like we don't even celebrate properly. When we get paid that paycheck, that's an appreciation. That's a celebration. Obviously, stay within your means, but it's important to celebrate certain wins, because what do we talk about all the time with programming our subconscious? How else is our subconscious going to know to tell our conscious that's what we want? That's the energy. We want more wins, more of that energy. So therefore, when we go into it, when we have a win, we have to celebrate it. We have to make sure that we're showing the universe, giving out a certain frequency that is aligned with us receiving more of these wins that we just received. So that's what the positive thinking on both ends is going to lead to. Embracing the storm as well as embracing the wins as well. What else did I have for you guys? Yeah. And I just had a couple other things that I just touched on, which is just that the goal, well, when you look at your goals, I would assume that the goal remains the same, to become the very best versions of ourselves so that we can best fulfill our purpose. And to do so, we're going to need the things that come with the storm and the things that come with the winds. And not only is that going to allow us to reach certain levels and attain certain success, but it's also going to allow us to free others. It's going to allow us to be that love and light for others so that therefore they can be free and feel comfortable, I should say, in striving to reach a certain level of them working towards their purposeful abundance and whatever their purpose is. We tend to complicate life in a lot of ways, I think. And when the more we look at it from a simple standpoint, it can be intimidating, but in my opinion, it's also what's going to allow us to have the levels of success in various areas of our lives. When we just look at, hey, the yin and the yang, we got to make sure that we're embracing both. We got to understand that there's value in both. There's value in the things that I need to learn from during the storm in order to best perform to get more wins. And then when I get challenged, the more I get challenged in the wins, then the more I'm going to get alerted like, hey, you need to work on this. And that's going to show up and allow me to go through, more challenges. And therefore, I'm going to come out better. So therefore, now I can overcome or not overcome. Now I can embrace that new challenge and just win. So don't complicate it. Be that love and light, inspire others. Just inspire others to be open to leaning into becoming the best versions of themselves, so that way they can fulfill their purpose, whatever that is, as we strive for what we always talk about, purposeful abundance. So that was just a message that I wanted to leave with y'all. Embrace the storm, embrace the challenges. Don't just endure it. Go into it with a certain level. Go into it with more energy. Go into it with more energy and inviting energy. Confuse the challenge. Make it a game. Make it something where it's like, yo, I appreciate you. I appreciate you challenging me in this way. Like, yeah, you damn near almost broke me last time, but I'm appreciating it because even though you almost broke me last time, it actually prepared me to do better. And now I'm competing on a higher level, on a higher frequency for bigger wins and bigger gains. So that's what I'll leave it. That's what I'll leave you guys with. And I think what did I say? I think, this last sentence. Oh, yeah. The more we become, the more that comes back to us. So as Queez always says, be the change. This what came to mind to me the other day or yesterday when it says the more that we become, the more that comes back to us. So the more we become whatever it is that we're becoming, the more we're putting out that particular energy and aligning ourselves with that frequency. So the more we become, the more that comes back to us. So it's just a revolving door. And we get to decide what it is that we want to become. We get to decide what we're going to choose every time, what we put out to the universe. We get to choose love and light over all the negativity, all the hatred, all the fear mongering that is constantly dangled in front of us. So just wanted to leave y'all with that message. Hopefully y'all received it. And hopefully it helps you guys out. I'm late on the chat. Hold on. Let me make sure that I'm catching up with the chat. Clearly, some of this is going to be from before, but I just want to make sure that I get everybody. So Antro, polarizing content is what got Trump in office and Kirk on that podcast. It's America's new shock currency. I agree. Milana wrote, the fact that we give billions of dollars to other countries when Americans don't have clean drinking water is all that I need to know that we don't have our priorities set straight locally or federally. You're 100% right, Lana. Look at you and Ursa's situation with Hawaii. Hawaii is America. The fact that people are struggling so much over there, like it's across the board. That's why I said it's not just a black issue. It's not just a white issue. This is just an American issue. And this is why I talked the other day before when we were showing the Vivek video, where it's like, is it important to prioritize our Americanism or to lead with the other things that we may be? If we lead with being American, then maybe we'll have a different perspective that allows us to really see prioritizing our country first. What do they say on the plane? Put our mask on first and then help others, right? Right now, our mask isn't on, but we're trying to help everybody else. Right now, we're broke as hell. We have nothing in our cup, or our cup's getting thrown all over the place where we're feeding everybody else to the point where we get back to our people and we got our people that are thirsty. So it's definitely the same thing that Alana's discussing. Alana wrote, America takes better care of its side chicks. Hey, yo. America takes better care of its side chicks. Hey, yo. Ant wrote Alana's side. Most individuals who struggle with self have an easier time caring for the sides than doing the hard work to build up home base. Most individuals who struggle with self has an easier time caring for sides. Wow, yeah. That's what America's doing. That's what America's doing. So hopefully we can make sure that the 12,000 people in the building right now, that we're approaching things just from a standpoint of, what's fair, what has the principles that we want to align with? And maybe if we just look at it like this, where if everybody makes the decisions that I'm getting ready to make, how will that impact society? Maybe that's a good way of weighing things out and setting a proper perception for how we're viewing what goes on in this world. So yeah, let me make sure Alana wrote Alana wrote, Lord is telling the truths. All right, so we all in agreement. All right, so this is what we'll do. We can't end the show without having our visualization / meditation. So Monday, y'all know what it's open. Take 30 to 45 seconds to visualize, manifest, meditate, clear your mind, fill your mind, whatever you need to do. Just take that time to just get your breathing together and just set your intentions for having an amazing day. Because if we stack a good Monday, then we can, or if we have a good Monday, then we can stack on another day, Tuesday, then we keep stacking those days. That's when we have those amazing weeks that we turn around and look back and like, damn, we really got a lot done. So let's set the intentions for the week, 30 to 45 seconds. If you're in a place where you can close your eyes and safe, then do so. If not, maybe just unpack your mind in a different way. But let's go, 30 to 45 seconds. Let's go. All right. Y'all know what it is, man. Y'all know what we're here to do. Elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, as well as doing whatever we need to become whoever we need to become in order to accomplish our goals and to live in our purpose and to maximize who we can become, becoming the greatest versions of ourselves. So strength and honor, onward and upward. Y'all know what it is. Get to the bag, whatever's in your bag. You decide what's in my bag. We got the health, wealth, integrity, and peace, love, and happiness. And with that, appreciate y'all. Please like before you leave. Please like. And if you enjoyed the show, share with a friend, or just, not. It is what it is. But obviously, we're always looking to grow. We're looking to get more and more people involved in the conversation. So if you are in the chat right now, you can do us a favor and just like, because that's going to make sure that the algorithm that we get this video sent out to as many different people. Queez already sent the fire emoji, so y'all know what it is. Ant said, have a great day and a better week, everyone. And Alana gave us all the good energy. So that's all we need to have an amazing week. So with that, I'll see y'all soon. I'll see y'all Wednesday. We will be back to the wind down, not the wake up for Wednesday as of right now. So that's what I'll leave y'all with. And I'll see y'all on Wednesday. Ew.